Hang it in the Louvre. Hang it in the Louvre. Why? Other than Jules Rimet, what does that goal have to do with France? Plastil of Jules Rimet, that's where you find the Parc des Princes. That's where James McFadden scored his phenomenal goal in Scotland World Cup qualifying history. A goal that's going to have to shift along now. It's going to have to move along a bit on the pantheon, on the rostrum, the podium of great Scotland men's team goals. Archie Gemmell's goal against the Netherlands and Mendoza, it's going to have to shift a little bit to the other side, just creating a little bit of room in the middle there for a new arrival. But don't hang it in the Louvre, hang it in the V&A in Dundee, hang it in Kelvingrove Art Gallery, hang it at the National Gallery in Edinburgh. In fact, no, bring it back to Glasgow. If you're going to have it in Glasgow, if you're going to have it in the same city as the first international football match ever played, have it in Exchange Square. Have it in MoMA, have it in the Museum of Modern Art in Exchange Square in Glasgow city centre. Not because that's where some of the most happening art, the most vibrant, most energetic art does get exhibited at MoMA. I'm not talking about the Banksy exhibition. Oh, it was sold out, the most sold out art exhibition in the history of Scotland, the Banksy exhibition, when it went to MoMA in Glasgow. And it's good. Listen, if that's what gets the kids involved, if that's what gets people woken up to what's going on in the world and the possibilities of art. But it's very gimmicky. I did the podcast a few days ago. I did Dulce et Decorum Est, a poem I learnt at school, and that got me into poetry. Better stuff. Real stuff, proper poetry and whatever. That's if it's a way in, it's a way in. But the main thing is, if you have it in MoMA, if you have that goal hung in Exchange Square, it'll be right next to that bloody statue of the Duke of Wellington with that stupid cone on top of it. It was funny maybe 3 decades ago, the old cone on top of it. And it's not because the horse he's sitting on is called Copenhagen. The Duke of Wellington's horse was called Copenhagen. The goal was scored against the Danes. Fantastic stuff. No, it's because that cone on top of the Duke of Wellington statue in Exchange Square, it's on postcards, it's on greetings cards, birthday cards, it's going to be on Christmas cards. Little bits of snow as well in the shoulder. Santa again across the top of the MoMA building there, but it passes for Glasgow humour, for working class humour, for the banter. It's monetised, it's marketed by the very people that anybody thinking that was original would actually be trying to have a pop at. Just get proper people's art. And it's not always the people who get to be in the stadium to see it these days. It's a very middle class thing now, going to the football, particularly going to Scotland games. Just get it hung up. I used to live in Ardrossan. I was born in Ardrossan, stayed there for years, obviously, before I moved up to Glasgow. And the nearest pub to the first house I stayed in Ardrossan when I was a kid, when I was sitting in my house in Eglinton Square in Ardrossan as a kid, watching Kenny Dalglish score that goal. Kenny Dow scored that goal against Wales at Anfield when he was a Liverpool player, scoring for Scotland 2-0 up against. My favourite, most enjoyable Scotland goal ever, and I was only like 8 years old at the time. Was it even 8? I'd be 7. I'd be 7 years old at the time. But I was watching it with my auntie and my uncle. They were babysitting there quite young at the time. My dad was probably, I don't know if he'd been in the tap shop, but he'd probably been in the Winton bar. My mum was doing night school, so I was getting babysitting. And it was great watching that game with my aunt and uncle. I always remember it. That's a Scot. That's Joe Jordan's handled that ball. But there's a bar just down the road from Eglinton Square, just next kind of street down, and it's at the top of a street, and it's called the Crescent Bar, officially called the Crescent Bar. Everybody called it the Tap Shop. It's a tap shop. People talk about, that's a bit of a Rangers shop, that's a bit of a Celtic shop. These pubs get called shops, but it was a Crescent Bar, was its official name. I don't know if it's because like taps, as in pumps, beer taps. I don't know how long this nickname had been doing the rounds, no pun intended, in Ardrossan. It was at the top of a street. It was at the top of a crescent, just off the top of a crescent. I don't know why it had this name, but years later they actually changed. I don't know if it was new owners or whatever, but they changed the official name of the Crescent Bar to the Tap Shop. I think they had TAPPSHOPPE, the Tap Shopee or something like that. It was awful. It was terrible. It was too on the nose, and it was patronising. It just comes across as really patronising. Let it actually be a subculture. Let it be the people's culture. Don't try to commodify it straight away. It was awful. I'm barred for the Tap Shop or the Crescent Bar, but that's what I feel like that cone is like on the top of the Duke of Wellington's head. Don't hang it in the Louvre. If you've got to hang it in the museum, hang it in the museum in the bowels of the very building that contains the pitch in which that goal was scored. Hang it at the Scottish National Football Museum. Hang it next to the life-size diorama they've got. Well, they certainly had it the last time I was in that museum of Archie Gemmell's goal against the Netherlands in Mendoza. But you don't hang it in the Louvre. And Kenny McLean's goal, hang that in the People's Palace. Hang that in George Square. Because that was even better. That was even better for all sorts of different reasons. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Ek. I will talk about Kevin Thelwell's address to the nation. I will talk about Willie Collum sticking up for Nick Walsh. I will talk about the fact we've got this guy called Scott Fry, who's a new set-piece coach. I'll talk about a potential injury crisis at centre-half for Rangers this weekend. But I'm going to talk about Scotland tonight because I never said this was a Rangers podcast. This is just basically a diary of a guy who likes to pod, who likes to just talk about what's going on in his life. And I'm obsessed with Rangers, and I'm obsessed much smaller, about a tenth as much obsessed with the Scotland national team. As I said, I think the Footballogy app sums it up best. It tells me that I've been to about 940 odd Rangers games in my life. I don't know how accurate that is. It tells me I've been to 96 Scotland games in my life. That's spot on. So I'm 10 times less intense about the Scotland national team, but they've just qualified for the first World Cup in 27 years, the first World Cup in 28 years that we've qualified for, and that is absolutely massive for everybody and everything to do with Scottish football. Catch-up pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet on Friday night, this coming Friday night, 9 p.m, and live on the Gersnet YouTube channel. It'll be Brian, it'll be Stuart. That's going to be fantastic. Two great guys there. And I'm also sponsored by Jalapenos, maple syrup, and Mom's apple pie. Mom's homemade apple pie. Scotland are off to the World Cup. My name's Alec Anderson. You travelled from Dublin. You said to change the world. You sing like Sinatra. Always. You pulled them for miles now, like Garbo in Berlin. You played them for zeros, just like always tonight. Some bitches hassling me, and tonight it feels so good being cheap. I can only disappoint you, 'cause I always let you down. I can only disappoint you. Always did it. My name's Alec Anderson, and I'm coming to you earlier than I should do, folks. I said I would give you a break from listening to my stuff. You probably switched off already because of the international break. It's mostly Rangers stuff I do in this podcast here, but I have to. I can't not comment on what happened last night at Hampden. First things first, snagging items from the last pod, which was a kind of preview pod, if you like, the international weekend. When did that go? Was it Friday? I think it was Friday night. I went out there. I was talking about neologisms. I was trying to get a new neologism in there. I slipped in the MTK Budapest thing, didn't I? That's a bit of an MTK Budapest. MTK Budapest used to be called Voros Labogo, which is Hungarian for red flag. So that was one I was trying to slip in kind of under the carpet there. Folks starting about going, that's a bit an MTK Budapest, a bit of red flag. It's no happening. But I tried that, and it's not. Just to tell you, it's not my first attempt. And it was limp improvement. I said Rangers were kind of improving, but they were limping along, and that's more sustainable, improving at that kind of pace. It was limp improvement for Rangers. That was the neologism I was trying to get. A few of you liked that, backed me up on that. I tried to get it into the OED. Thanks very much, folks. But I have to say, come clean, that I've also tried it in the past with Olivier Giroud at I think it was 2018 World Cup. France won the 2018 World Cup, lost the 2022 World Cup final, of course. I tried to. Olivier Giroud wasn't scoring any goals, but he was vital to how France were playing because he was knocking the ball. He was basically had his back to goal and he's kind of knocking the ball down because he's so good in the air and he was teeing it up for. He's not doing that for Hamza Igaman, but he was teeing the ball up for his teammates there to score lots of goals. Mbappe and Griezmann and these kind of guys. Well, I said is look the backboard. Olivier, the backboard. Do you know, like in basketball where you can go in. A few times I played basketball at school. Instead of like throwing it right up to try and get to loop down straight in through the hoop, I would hit the backboard bit and hope it would use that to get. That's what France are basically doing with Olivier Giroud. Olivier, the backboard, Giroud. This was in my kind of blogging days and a lot of Twitter as well. Never took off. So it's not my first. It's not. You just got to keep trying. Though. You just got to keep trying. Steve Clarke, Scotland. You just got to keep trying. Don't give up. So my latest improvement. It's no new for me to try and get into the neologism game, but there you are. And also, I did a wee bit of "Tis Was," the Sleaford Mod song. "Tis Was" did a terrible rendition of that. And there's a line in that where that's for the middle class train spot. I get called an anarchist, but that's for the middle class train spotters. And he mused the word train spotters to try and make it rhyme with anarchist. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I am an antichrist. I am an anarchist. Is he doing a little tribute to anarchy in the UK by the Pistols? Because I know he's into the Pistols, Jason Williamson and the boys at the Sleaford Mods duet there. But I thought, I've never actually, is a wee tribute, the terrible rhyme with anarchist as a wee tribute to anarchy in the UK. I am an antichrist. I am an anarchist. You know, I get called an anarchist, but he rhymes that with train spotters. It's train spotters. Anyway, it's Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. That's the problem with Scotland. It's Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro collaborations. I got the whole collection. I used to have the whole collection anyway. I got it on VHS, and then they did. What other film did they did another one later on? And I ended up having I converted it onto DVD, and now I've lost track. But I used to have the full collection of Scorsese and De Niro collaborations. But Mean Streets was a first collaboration. And that came out in 1973, Mean Streets. Fantastic film. Harvey Keitel was the star. I mean, Streets are the protagonist anyway, but De Niro really stealing the scenes and all that, laying down the beginnings of his legend in Mean Streets there. But that was 1973, and Scotland qualified for the first World Cup since the black and white days. Since the 50s, they qualified for that. In 1974, the only the third at that time major finals would ever qualified for. Then you get late 70s into early 80s, you've got like Taxi Driver, 76, New York, 77, Raging Bull, 1980, right up to 1982, King of Comedy. And you get Scotland qualified in 1978, World Cup, 1982, World Cup. Just keep qualifying while De Niro and De Niro and Martin Scorsese are chucking at some of the greatest films ever made. But then it tails off a wee bit, and you get 1986, the Colour of Money, where Scorsese starts working with like Tom Cruise. I think he's looking at Tom Cruise thinking he's a potential muse to replace De Niro. And Scotland qualified for the 1986 World Cup, but we only scored one goal, and then we'll get a chance to go through against Uruguay, and they go down to 10 men within like a minute, and we can't beat them. So it's kind of awful. We did qualify, but it wasn't looking good. 1988, Last Temptation of Christ. Keitel's in that as well. What's his name? Willem Dafoe. He's Jesus, but it doesn't. There's no Robert De Niro in that one. Scotland don't qualify for Euro 88, 1990. Goodfellas. It's Scorsese and De Niro back again. Jimmy the Gent and all that. Goodfellas, absolutely classic stuff. Scotland. Italia 90, no problem at all. 1991, Cape Fear. Cape Fear. It's a remake of Robert Mitchum film there, Cape Fear, and they have Gregory Peck, and the two they were in the film, the remake that Scorsese and De Niro did in 1992. Scotland qualified for the Euros for the first time. So if it's just that year, that the following year, Scorsese and De Niro have a little bit of a combat, they work together, then that's it. But you then get the Age of Innocence, 1993. Daniel Day-Lewis. It's Daniel Day-Lewis, my muse. Can I get rid of De Niro? De Niro's getting a bit old, you know. I'm going to have Daniel Day-Lewis. He's in this bit. Didn't he really inspire the film? Daniel Day-Lewis and USA in 1994 is the first World Cup Scotland have failed to qualify for in 20 years, in a generation. It's no happening at all. 1995, Casino, they're back. It's Scorsese, it's De Niro, it's Casino, it's absolutely fantastic. A tremendous movie, and Scotland qualify for Euro 96, and then that's when it all starts going wrong. You get Kundun, which has got nobody in it. Kundun's got absolutely nobody in it in 1997. That's fair enough. Scotland get to the 1998 World Cup. That's maybe blowing my whole theory up in my face there. But that was just one last kind of hurrah. It was a terrible World Cup for Scotland. So we lost twice, drew with Norway, get gubbed 3-0 by Morocco. But it did cope. Maybe that's going to get. But 2002, Gangs of New York. You get Bring Out the Dead, 1999. I'm reading this off the laptop here. But you get Bringing Out the Dead in 1999. No De Niro. No Scotland, no party, etc. Don't get to Euro 2000, 2002, Gangs of New York. Day-Lewis is segueing with DiCaprio, two different muses. De Niro's not in it. Gangs of New York by Martin Scorsese. Just think Robert De Niro's going to be in that film. I went to the cinema to see the first time it was shown in Glasgow. I was there, kind of disappointed. Decent film, but it wasn't happening at all, as far as I was concerned, and it wasn't happening for Scotland after that. De Niro's not involved in Scorsese films. That's it. 2002, Scotland don't make the 2002 World Cup. The Aviator, it's DiCaprio. He just called me DiCaprio. 2004, Scotland don't make Euro 2004, and Portugal 2006 World Cup in Germany. The Departed, things that departed, but again, it's DiCaprio is his muse. There's no De Niro in it. Scorsese film, and that's Scotland don't make 2006 World Cup. 2010 Shutter Island. It's DiCaprio again. Scorsese, Scotland don't make it 2010 World Cup. 2013 Wolf of Wall Street. No, it's DiCaprio again. Scorsese, DiCaprio. No De Niro involved in it. Scotland going to get to the 2014 World Cup. The Irishman, that comes out in 2000. You get 2016 Silence. That's Andrew Garfield, Liam Neeson. It's a Scorsese film without De Niro, and there's no way Scotland are making Euro 2016, despite the fact half of Europe is now eligible to qualify for the expanded European Championship finals. 2019, The Irishman. Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's painful, the kind of modern CGI thing, which is it's terrible. It's a good film. It's a really good film, but the stuff of De Niro beating the guy up when he's obviously is barely able to lift a Zimmer, that's pretty painful. But nevertheless, 2020, it's painful because it takes Scotland. It's actually 2021 before the Euros get played, but Scotland qualify because De Niro and Scorsese are back working together. 2023, Killers of the Flower Moon. I watched it on the way back from Nashville. That and Oppenheimer back to back. That was hard going. Not a great film, Killers of the Flower Moon, but it is. I mean, we've got DiCaprio in there as well, but it's De Niro as well, and it's Scorsese, and Scotland qualify for Euro 2024. They don't seem to have anything going just now. They don't seem to be working together, but look for an announcement because Scotland are back in the World Cup. So De Niro and Scorsese must be working again. Check it out. These things are absolutely spot on. It was Sunday before it really hit me. I watched the game on Saturday night, the Greece game, obviously. But it was, I don't know if it's because it's a Saturday night and you feel it's just a bad night for football. Of all the nights, I feel Saturday night's really bad. That's the one night I really want to chill out, having a football match in my system from the afternoon, but watching it live. Nevertheless, we're going to see what's happening here. Scotland are 3-0 down. They pull it back to 3-2. Okay, missed a wheen of chances in that second half as well. Belarus, I'm thinking it's a bit better. I said it in the preview pod, if you like, on Friday night. This campaign, this shortened campaign, this truncated qualifying campaign, Scotland seem to be more lucky than good. And that's garbage because the luck has been earned over the years. But Belarus taking something off Denmark was a tremendous result. But I was just kind of parking it to the side because I didn't want to ruin my Saturday night completely. I wanted to watch some other stuff later on in telly to chill out like a Saturday. And then Sunday, the sun was up. Hello to James, big mention to James, who said hello to me when I was down at the old pond on Sunday having a coffee. Very nice about the pod. I'm not asking what team the guy supported. I'm not going to ruin that. I guess he was enjoying the pod, and that was really made my day there. James, thanks very much for that, mate. Really, really needed that. We got back up the roads, and that was nice, and it'd been a lovely sunny day. And I thought, that's fine. And it was cold, but no freezing. And you know what it's like with the dark nights. I thought, I'm going to sit out the back door in the remnant of the sunshine, wee cup of tea and all that. I wasn't hitting the drink or anything like that. And as I left, I just put on it. I switched over to was it TNT or something like that. Scotland playing Argentina at the rugby union at Murrayfield. 20, what was it? I've written it down here because I don't really get the rugby scores. I think was it 21-0. I think we're 21-0 up with 25 minutes to go. And that's fine. That's really good. That's good. And the rugby, it's only 80 minutes long, and it was that's 25 minutes to go. Scotland are beating Argentina because Argentina are in there with Australia and New Zealand and the South Africa in the championship now, aren't they? They're really decent. Argentina have been for a while since they finished third at that World Cup. Their third place playoff coming against. Who did they win the third place playoff against? I can't remember, but it was the Parc des Princes anyway that they finished third in a World Cup. And it's like that's where Croatia finished third at the 1998 World Cup in France, the Football World Cup. And it's like, it's the two nations announcing themselves as being on the cusp of the big time. I went out, I sat outside and I just listened to some music and the sun was going down. Now, this is absolutely lovely. So I got back into the house after about half an hour. I switched on the telly and Scotland have got beat at the rugby. They completely caved, and it's that way I could rewind it. And I just watched all the I know we get a man pitting the sin bin or whatever it is they do it there. I don't really know that much about rugby union, but I know enough to be pissed off. And I was like, what the and I think it was the night before. I think it was what happened against Greece. And it's also Argentina. It's just the first World Cup I remember is Argentina. You don't think the Pumas have got anything to do with football? Where do they play their games? I think they've got a few kind of home stadiums, if you like. They'll play games all over Argentina, but I think one of the places they've certainly played Scotland is the Mario Kempes Stadium in Cordoba, which wasn't always called the Mario Kempes Stadium. The World Cup that made Mario Kempes. 1978 World Cup, that's where Scotland played. That's where we get beat off Peru. That's where we drew with Iran. And I remember, that's the first World Cup I remember watching Argentina. I remember being, and it wasn't just me as a kid, 8 years old. I was surrounded by adults, and quite down to earth adults like my dad and all that, who believed Scotland were going to do something. They were going to win that bloody World Cup, or they were certainly going to get to the semis or the final anyway. This is the days where a World Cup was only 16 teams. And it was awful. I remember watching these games. This isn't what was supposed to happen. I didn't know anything about football, but I just knew that Scotland were going to do really well in this World Cup. This stuff was just a formality. 1-0, said David Coleman when Joe Jordan gave us a lead against Peru. I was only until I was years older I realised what Peru had done in the 1970 World Cup and what they'd done no bad in the 74 World Cup. These guys were old hats and they were tremendous players, but they absolutely gubbed us. It wasn't in the script, and then we're playing Iran, who at that point were just nothing in football, absolutely nothing, and we struggled to draw on each. And I remember I was still sitting making a wee sellotaping together these little bits of paper that I was making up a pennant about Scotland World Cup winners. Making this pennant, saying to my dad, there's on a wee coffee table in the living room, and I'm going, Dad, why are we not beating Iran? Shut up, son, got me a sellotape, whatever he said. It was awful, Argentina, and then that's the stadium where the rugby union, the Pumas, the Argentina rugby union team play. I think it's because it's a field sport as well. It just represents that thing of things we're supposed to be good at, things we were at right at the start of inventing these sports. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but I certainly know the first football international was the first rugby union international. Was it Scotland against England as well? Murrayfield, crowds over 100,000, that kind of stuff. One of the most iconic venues in the world, and we just can't do the business at all at that, and there's not even as many nations involved. It gets embarrassing, and it reminds me of what we do at the football. It's Argentina was the team, the Women's World Cup 2019, Scotland. They played at the Parc des Princes again. It's that Parc des Princes in Paris, iconic venue at the heart of everything romantic about football. Paris is a romantic city, the city of romance, yeah, but my God, for football, even more so. And I'm sitting there in the house we were in at the time, not the present house, and I'm watching the Scotland women's team go 3-0 up against Argentina. I think there was something like 20 minutes to go, and they're playing at Parc des Princes, and it's full, and it's just like, it's the Women's World Cup. This is glorious. And I started crying with pride for them. I just with joy for them. I'm watching a Scotland team here, and I've only seen the Scotland women's team a few times, a handful of 2 times maybe. There's only 2 times. I went a couple of games in the Olympics. It was different nations involved, and I saw them against Jamaica in the send-off game for that. It was the biggest crowd ever for a women's game in Scotland. I went along to that and playing Austria in a playoff as well. Anyway, I don't have the time to be massively into the Scotland women's team the same way I'm into other football, but it was just amazing to watch. I thought, this is brilliant. A Scotland team is going to get through. This is them. They're going to progress to the next round. A Scotland adult team, football national team, is going to progress to the last stages of a finals for the first time ever. And Argentina pulled a goal back. And they pulled another goal back. And by the time they equalised Argentina and put Scotland out, I was in tears. When it's the men's team, when it's Rangers or when it's Scotland, I don't cry. I'll get angry. I'll take it in. I'll only cry when they win. I'll only cry when the stuff is good, because I know I'm going to come back and back and back, and you just store this up. There's no point in. And you get kind of hardened. But when it's the Scotland rugby team, I saw them in the same situation at Twickenham against Australia in a quarter-final of the Rugby World Cup, and I thought they went ahead with like 5 minutes to go to potentially get into the semi-final, and I started crying for all these fucking lawyers and private schoolboys. I know that's not. I know you get all the guys for the borders and what have you. It's a kind of mixed bag in the class system when it comes to the Scotland rugby team. But I was crying for them. I can't take it. I know what's going to happen. And sure enough, Australia scored the last kick of the ball to put us out, and I couldn't take it. I know it's patronising. I know it's patriarchy-tising, but I was just, why has it happened to the lassies as well? Why have the lassies got to go through the same thing as us? At FITBA, and I was bereft. I was absolutely bereft, and I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. And there I was. I think that's what came out on Sunday afternoon. And I'm sitting screaming at the telly because the Scotland rugby team. I wasn't even watching the game. I just saw that they were winning, and I come back in, and they'd managed to get beat. And it just all felt like part of the same thing. Argentina 78, Argentina 79. When they won the World Cup in 78, Argentina, I remember watching that. And my pal Alan through, he's across the road in the kind of corresponding house. He was upstairs in the kind of cottage flats that we had in Eglinton Square. It's kind of new town type stuff in Ardrossan. And I was in the boatman. And I remember us both in our PJs watching the World Cup final on the Sunday night and waving to each other, across the 1-0, 2-0, whatever. It was one each, and then we went into extra time. Okay, stay up late to watch. It was amazing, the ticker tape stuff and all that. We didn't know, but it was a fascist junta that was in charge. It was torturing people just yards for the stadium, but it was spectacular. Still one of the coolest kits of all time, that Argentina 78 kit. Watched that. That was great. And in 1979, they came to Hampden. I think maybe exactly a year later, they came to Hampden. Blistering sunshine, only like 60-odd thousand there, so there was at the time that Hampden held about 75,000-80,000. So there's plenty of space there, so there's no reason my dad shouldn't have taken me, except that he'd only been in his 30s at the time, my dad, and he's working all week, and the last thing he wants to take is as a boy that's more interested in airfix, British infantry and German paratroopers than he was in football at the time. But I still, it's because my dad doesn't go on about football the same way I do. He doesn't wax lyrical about the football the same way I do, because he doesn't want to bore people. He just wants folk to enjoy his company. But it's the one fucking game he goes on about all the time, because not only was it the Argentina team that had won the World Cup in '78, it was that team with added Diego Maradona, and he proceeds to score his first ever goal for the Argentina national team at Hampden. As I said, I get mixed up with it. I get mixed up with that Debbie Harry picture, and there's a picture of Diego Maradona. There isn't. I imagine there's a picture of Debbie Harry. There's a picture of Debbie Harry in this book that we've got in the house of Debbie Harry and Blondie, being followed by some photojournalist, and a lot playing at the Apollo in Glasgow. Features in the book, and they're in hotels in Glasgow, and I don't know if one of them is the Central Hotel, but Maradona in Argentina stayed in the Central Hotel, and there's that picture of 17-year-old Diego Maradona looking out onto Hope Street, in black and white, and I've got it in my head that Blondie is got exactly the same photo, and I get them confused in my head at times because it's so iconic. But my dad will talk, looky, these guys. It was fantastic, Passarella, the way they were moving the ball, but the Scotland crowd actually started cheering on, applauding Argentina, playing that was so good, they beat Scotland 3-1 and all that, and he starts talking about how he was in the Celtic end. Him and Michael, both Kilmarnock supporters, him and his best mate, are sitting they could sit down, there's enough room, we could sit down in the Celtic end, just getting baked in the sun while Argentina were out there playing this. But shut up, why did you not take me? Why did you not take me? I never saw Maradona play. I was there when Maradona came back to Hampden to have his first game. He demanded that his first game as manager of the Argentine national team would be back at Hampden because it meant so much to him. I was there for that one. They beat us 1-0 in the middle of winter, midweek. Dark, fairly average Argentina team, but Argentina just means pain to me. It just represents pain in all sorts of different ways, even though they play beautiful football, and it makes me think, what is it with Scotland? What is the internecine is good. This whole thing, it's Rangers and Celtic. When they spend so much time, people and Rangers and Celtic are becoming. If Scotland don't do well, one of the great things about Scotland doing well and getting to a World Cup and qualifying for 3 out of 4 tournaments now is it might stop this whole thing where Rangers fans and Celtic fans start seeing their club as a different country. There's like 3 different countries in Scotland: Rangers, Celtic, and the Scotland national team. This is definitely a thing that's built up, and I'm part of it as well. A few of the bitternesses I've got towards the Tartan army and what have you, but we can't have that. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. But bitterness, like Peñarol Nacional, is the only other rivalry in the world, really, in Montevideo and Uruguay that rivals the Rangers and Celtic in terms of dominating the amount of league titles won in that country and absolutely despising each other in within the same city. And Uruguay has they basically they've got 3 stars in their kit because they won the World Cup in 1930. They won the World Cup in 1950, but they consider that the 1928 Olympics that they won was also they won the World. When they won that was also the equivalent of the World Cup in the days. For a while, Uruguay had won the Copa America more than Argentina and Brazil put together. Semi-finals, a couple other World Cups at least, maybe 3, 4 other World Cups. They're just a phenomenal Uruguay. Their population is less than Scotland's. There's no reason the internecine stuff. It inspires Celtic to win the European Cup. It inspires Rangers to equal Celtic's 9 in a row and do stuff in Europe. We've been to 5 European finals for a country of 5 million people. Internecine is good. Alex Ferguson, bitter as hell against Rangers for dropping them, for getting rid of him and all that, inspires him to do the things he did with Aberdeen, the last Scottish team to win a European trophy, the last side to beat Real Madrid in a European club final. 27 years since Scotland last played in the World Cup, 27 years for Manchester United to win the league title, because in 1968 they thought they'd done it. They thought, that's us, won the European Cup, there's nothing else to do now. And they just, because they stopped going forward, they started going back. It took Alex Ferguson getting in there to reverse that and halt it at 27 years of not being champions of England, and eventually got them back to winning the European Cup, the Champions League. He managed it twice because the internecine, the grinding, just kind of hit the need to prove yourself. That's not a bad thing. That isn't a bad thing. But we seem to just do this. Scotland didn't qualify for Euro 2000, and I remember that I wasn't at that game. I told you in the preview pod or Friday's pod, I was saying how I was at every game in that qualifying campaign, and most of them were half empty, especially the game that actually confirmed we're going to be in the playoffs against Lithuania on a Saturday afternoon. There was like 27,000 at Hampden. I was at all of those games, and the minute we drew England in the playoff, the tickets were gone like that. They're gone in a second. I couldn't get a ticket for love nor money. And that was the day I thought, I'm going to make sure that never happens to me again, because most of these people don't care. Most of these people are there to hate England. Never mind the fact it's a playoff. They're just there to hate England. I am there to love Scotland, and I want to see the Scotland team doing well. That's my local national team, and I deserve to support them more than I deserve. And I would buy my membership of the Scotland Supporters Club, even though I went to Wembley. I've been to Wembley like 3 times, watching 2 at the old Wembley, once at the new Wembley, which is quite standard for a guy of my age. It used to be, that was the equivalent of the Aboriginal kind of walkabout for the Scottish youth, was to go and see Scotland at Wembley. It was a rite of passage, but these people, I had to join the travel club thing. It was called a travel club at first, and then it became the Scotland Supporters Club or whatever it is. And it got to the stage, it was like £50 a year membership. And I was going to these games in the Nations League. I haven't missed a single Nations League game at Hampden that you're allowed into. There was, obviously some you couldn't get into because of COVID. I've been at every single one, including that playoff against Greece when they beat us 3-0 back in March. Yeah, I couldn't get a ticket for last night because I stopped renewing my membership, because every time I'd go to these games, they'd be half empty, and I'm thinking, I don't need to be paying an extra 40, 50 quid to get to these games. I didn't go last night, but there's a few things at play, and it's upset me because of some of the people that are there, but also I went on holiday to Skye when Scotland played Belarus at Hampden. It's only 3 home games in this qualifying tournament. I was at the Greece game. I didn't go to the Belarus game because I was on holiday, and there's this part of me that always thinks, well, you weren't trying hard enough. You would rather go on holiday than go to that. You're not as dedicated as some people. So I didn't rush in there trying to get my ticket straight away. I left it really late to try and get a ticket. It was sold out, but nevertheless, the resentment is actually absolutely there, and it's a kind of bookending almost to the Euro 2000 when we didn't qualify for a tournament after having got to Euro 92, Euro 96, France 98. Then you're just expecting to, no, we're not there. And it's like when your testicles descend, you don't know that at that young age that they'll never stop going downwards. It'll never stop descending. It'll never stop plummeting. And that's what happened to Scotland up until we qualified for the Euros in 2020. But last night was the real one, the World Cup. Oban, first game of the group stage. I told you I was in Oban. The first game of this group stage, we played away to Denmark. Just decided to have a couple of nights up in Oban. But Oban this last year for a few nights, and it was absolutely fantastic. Went to Mull and all that. It was during the summer, and we thought, what the hell? Let's go up to Oban for a couple. I want to do anything that particular weekend, international weekend. I don't have to do any pods. Nobody expects a pod out of me when Scotland are playing, and Oban's like is the capital of fish suppers. So we'd rented this week in a flat. I thought, well, let's just go out and get a fish supper. Let's go and get a classic Oban fish supper. And along we went. And as we're walking along onto the main drag at Oban, just after he's coming in the opposite direction, I'm heading towards the fish and chip shop. He didn't have a supper on him. I don't think maybe had been in there for having something to eat, whatever. But he was heading. It was the guy Bruce Fumey who hosts the Scotland History Tour. Scotland History Tours podcast, fantastic podcast, all stories, anecdotes, real detail about Scottish history. And I'm thinking, this is a sign. This is a sign. I've been passed by one of the most Scottish people there possibly is in Oban, which is Dalriata, it's the Gaels. I mean, it's a fantastically Scottish place. This is happening. It's full of Americans as well. There's symbolism going on here. We drew 0-0 with the Danes in Copenhagen that night, and the meeting of Bruce Fumey. It was definitely it was in the stars. It was in the stars that were going to qualify from this campaign. Steve Clarke joins Craig Brown and Andy Roxburgh, and a guy that's got Scotland to a Euros and a World Cup. Craig Brown and Andy Roxburgh also totally berated by the Tartan Army a lot, but certainly by Scottish football fans in general. You still get people telling you Craig Brown was useless. When we qualified for Euro 96, it was only France that had a better, defensive record than ourselves qualifying for that. Scotland were phenomenal under Craig. It was the players. We'd better players then. We'd better players in the 60s. With Dennis Law and Jim Baxter and Paddy Creran, these kind of guys, we couldn't qualify for fuck all. So it's Craig Brown and Andy Roxburgh getting slagged rotten. Steve Clarke has been consistently slagged rotten and told to get out the job by people who don't have a clue what they're talking about. And this is part of the problem in Scotland. We love football in a very particular way. We're obsessed with football, but it's either schadenfreude or it's hysterical hatred of our own. There's no desire to take the energy, the time we put into football and turn it into something positive. It takes somebody with a lot of focus, a lot of grit, a lot of determination to accept how bad we are and try to get the silk purse out of that pig's ear. Craig Brown's now Steve Clarke is now Scotland's most successful manager ever, taken over from Craig Brown in terms of he's managed Scotland for most games, but that's 3 tournaments out of the last 4. That's absolutely phenomenal. 23 World Cups. This will be the 23rd World Cup ever staged next summer. It's the 9th one Scotland have played in. It's only the 9th one we've played in. So we invented international football in this bloody city. 20 minutes from where I'm sitting. A 20-minute walk from where I'm sitting right now. No, I jumped in the car, I'm there in 5 minutes. Done at Partick. Germany have played in the final of the World Cup 8 times. We've reached the finals. This is only the 9th time that we've reached the finals. We qualified 10 times, but didn't go in 1950. Pride, because it was the home internationals group in FIFA begging us to go to the World Cup, begging us to like top 2 teams in the home internationals group, for like the British Championship. And we finished second. We said we'd only go if we won it. We finished second, so we didn't go, keeping our word. Unbelievable. Team last night, Scotland team, Grant Hanley and Shea Adams were dropped. They were dropped. That was a team sheet. They were dropped from the game against Greece. Absolutely fine, considering we'd have won 4-1 in Piraeus if neither of them had been playing. That's cruel, but I'm in a bad mood because I wasn't there, and because of some of the folk who were there. Liam Kelly, he was my first choice to go in goals. A totally biased choice for me. He wasn't playing. He's a young man, Liam Kelly, and compared to Craig Gordon, and he was saving penalties against Athletic Club Bilbao in the quarterfinals of a European club competition last season. So Liam Kelly was the man for me to go in nets, and Craig Gordon proved all night against the Greece and Piraeus why it should have been Craig Gordon in goal again. Billy Gilmour was out. That's a blow, especially after a game like Saturday's when we couldn't dictate the pace for the first 45 minutes. Centre half is our weak area. Centre half is really bad. Everywhere else we've got kind of English Premier League Serie A players playing in there. I mean, Scott McTominay scored the goal that won Serie A last season. I sat and watched that live. Beating Cagliari, I think it was at the Diego Maradona Stadium. Scott McTominay scores the goal. That was a wonder goal as well. It was an absolute cracker of a goal. Nothing compared to the one he scored last night. But again, that's a nation. Napoli is a nation. It's only the third time they won Serie A. It's something amazing. The first time since the Maradona days. The only time they've done it without Maradona, Napoli, and a tremendous thing. This is the quality of player we've got through it. John McGinn, captain of Aston Villa, with all their Scottish connections, a phenomenal club. Aston Villa, Andy Robertson, played in 3 Champions League finals, won the English Premier League a couple of times. Andy Robertson. Shea Adams plays for Torino. Lyndon Dykes, Birmingham City, okay, not exactly English Premier League, but they're going to be eventually a big concern. Birmingham City these days. Lawrence Shankland is an icon for the Jambos. He could end up being a league champion in Scotland this season, but scoring has always been our problem. It ends up main problem in this squad has always been, Steve Clarke's day, has been the centre half. So we've got about 25 world-class left-backs. We have to try and shove them in the team. You go with the 5 at the back, which is really a 3 sometimes, but it's mostly a 5 and stuff. We fit them in. There's wing-backs, there's full-backs. Wing-backs and full-backs pretending to be centre-halves as well. At times, Kieran Tierney's played at centre-half a few times for Scotland just to get him in the team, because he's a classy player, Kieran Tierney. But our problem is actual centre-halves. John Souttar, he's injured. He gets injured in the warm-up. So he has to go back to Grant Hanley and say to him, Grant Hanley of Hibs, a guy who just doesn't look like a footballer, Grant Hanley, but my God. He did the business last night. He's done the business a few times for Scotland, Grant Hanley, and he's at the back end of his career, but what a moment for him last night, and it shows you how Steve Clarke must have handled dropping Grant Hanley, and Grant Hanley then comes back in to the team at the last minute and is able to Scott McKenna, play alongside Scott McKenna, who's at Dinamo Zagreb. I keep forgetting Scott McKenna's at Dinamo Zagreb. How weird. And he's the two of them make the centre half pairing. It was exploited by Greece. Greece knew that their centre half pairing of Souttar and Hanley was weak, and you saw the first goal they scored. They knew exactly what they were doing. But it's scoring. Scoring has always been our problem. Andy Robertson, him and Lawrence Shankland, ex-Queen's Park players. The club, I've seen the two of them playing against Rangers when Rangers won the 3rd division. Shankland scoring against us at Hampden. And I've seen the two of them playing for Queen's Park, starting their career at Queen's Park, the club that provided all 11 players for the first ever Scotland national team. Yes, it is that historic. This moment, I'm going to be talking like that for far too long. Already have been. Lionel Messi is a phenomenon. Lionel Messi is a phenomenon, but he's actually scored more goals for Argentina than Kenny Dalglish has won caps for Scotland. Kenny Dalglish is our only centurion when it comes to caps. He's the guy with most caps for Scotland ever. Quite rightly, he's a legend, Kenny Dal. I think it's 100. He's 102 caps. I'm sure Messi's on 103 goals for Argentina. He'll probably get a few more next summer as well. I mean, Ronaldo is almost at 150 goals. No, these are exceptional kind of examples. But you've got, I mean, you saw what happened with Ronaldo the other night after what the Republic of Ireland did to Portugal, and he gets himself sent off, couldn't get a goal. It lands down the Aviva Stadium, and they go and play without him the following game, and they beat Armenia 9-1. Two different guys score hat-tricks. Ronaldo's not even in the squad. You know, it's got to be politically, it must be absolute murder trying to handle Ronaldo these days. He's off to help the Saudi murdering scumbag at the White House with Trump. So fuck him. All ends up Ronaldo. I didn't, we didn't know for sure if he was a rapist, but I feel as if he's proven he probably is with this kind of stuff. So fuck him. But it's 150 goals he's almost got, for 143 goals or something for Portugal. Kenny Dalglish and Dennis Law are a joint top scorer ever. The guys, nobody scored more goals for Scotland than Kenny Dalglish and Dennis Law, and they've got 30 goals each. 30 is the tally. The two of them together have basically got almost a third of what Ronaldo's got for Portugal. Scotland's goal scoring's always been the problem. We've got like John McGinn just now. I think is it 82 or 83 caps he's got, and he's on 20 goals. He's been on 20 goals for a while, John McGinn. I was getting quite excited that he might end up beating he's 31. I don't know if he's going to be 32 when the World Cup comes around, John McGinn. But if you look at the two players he's got to get past next, so it's Dalglish and Law are top. I think John McGinn's 5th now in the all-time top scorers for Scotland. Laurie Riley is on 22 goals. Of Hibs, no John McGinn, well, his Hibs connections. He got them in 38 caps. Laurie Riley got 22 goals for Scotland in 38 caps. Hughie Gallagher is next. He's 24 goals in 20 caps. I mean, we're talking the 1920s here when it comes to Hughie Gallagher. He scored 5 goals in one game. Only Scotland player to score 5 goals in a game against Ireland. But you get like R.S. McCall. Or Toffee Bob. He scored 13 goals in 13 games for Scotland at the turn of the 19th into the 20th century. He's the only guy to score hat-tricks against Ireland, Wales, and he scored hat-tricks against each of the other home nations. I mean, it was one Ireland at that point when R.S. McCall was scoring the goals. But Scotland just died after after the First World War. Certainly after the Second World War, just going backwards and backwards. A nation obsesses with football, and we just can't score goals anymore. 46 years between hat-tricks for Scotland. I was born like 2-3 months after Colin Steen scored 4 goals against Cyprus for Scotland in 1969, and then I was there the next time a Scotland player scored a hat-trick. There's also somebody who'd played for Hibs, like Colin Steen, Stephen Fletcher. Scores a hat-trick for Scotland against Gibraltar, who in the same game had scored their first ever competitive international goal. So we still managed to humiliate ourselves at one point by conceding the first competitive goal Gibraltar had ever scored at Hampden. It was an honour to be there to see that. And Stephen Fletcher, when he scored that third goal, he actually come running up to the bit. I was sitting kind of towards the Rangers end. Sorry for him doing support Rangers or Celtic, but towards the west side of the main stand, the south stand, over towards that end, just kind of caught, and that's exactly Stephen Fletcher scores that third goal, and he runs up to it. But I was 46 at the time. I was 46 years old. And I'm going, yeah, that's a hat trick. That was the first hat trick that scored since Colin Steen against Cyprus a few months before I was born. I mean, but Shea Adams scoring against Liechtenstein, scoring a hat trick against Liechtenstein after we'd lost 3-1 to Iceland at Hampden. Was that one? Oh, was that one? All right. And I think Fletcher scored away. He scored a hat trick away to Gibraltar, which actually played in Faro, played in the Algarve. He scored a hat trick in the away leg. And Robert Snodgrass, he scored a hat trick against Malta. But they certainly scored a few hat tricks since then, Scotland. But it went 46 years without scoring a hat trick. I switched on the coverage of the game on Saturday night, the game away to Greece and Piraeus, and it was the tail end. I caught the tail end of the BBC Wales coverage of their game against Liechtenstein. They're beating Liechtenstein 1-0. They're all, oh, this is great, fantastic, we're winning. No, that was great. I'm thinking, you're only beating Liechtenstein 1-0. We beat them 4-0 in a friendly. And I'm kind of laughing, thinking, oh, because Craig Bellamy's in charge of Wales. I kind of a wee bit of a rivalry with Wales. And you go back to the studio after it, and it's Rob Earnshaw. Shut me up. I remember him scoring a hat trick against Scotland. I've seen Wales 3 times, all in the World Cup. 1-0, beaten us 1-0 1985. Ian Rush scoring the goal of the game at Hampden. I'm there with my dad and my uncle. I'm like 15-year-old. Oh, Scotland against Ian Rush, only got Mark Hughes, Hodenoff, Alex McLeish and Willie Miller. Putting it past Jim Leighton, one of only 3 men to hit the 90 caps mark with Scotland. Ping, top corner, Ian Rush, what a goal. Saw him scoring against Sheffield United and at the Kop at Anfield as well. Ian Rush, so I've seen great things in football. I wasn't there last night. I wasn't at Hampden. And that was the first Scotland had lost a World Cup qualifier at home. This is Poland, 50s, 60s, late 50s, early 60s. Poland beat us at Hampden in a World Cup qualifier. And they were the first team, strictly speaking, that home internationals had doubled up as a World Cup qualifying campaign at some point. So we probably get beat at home by England or something in one of those. But an out-and-out World Cup qualifying campaign, properly playing countries from all over Europe, a FIFA World Cup qualifying campaign. Poland and then Wales beat us. Well, I've lost other ones in between times, but I was there again. I saw Wales losing to Poland at the Millennium Stadium, the Cardiff, the old Cardiff Arms Park. I went there to see. I've seen Scotland at Hampden, I've seen England at Wembley, and I've seen Wales in Cardiff. I just need to do Northern Ireland in Belfast. I've not been to Windsor Park, so I need to get that one off the bucket list. You've seen all the home nations. I need to go and see the Republic Island at the Aviva. I've been in. I was in it. I had a weekend in Dublin, and I went into Lansdowne. I got in and stood in the terrace in the old Lansdowne roads. It was open because there was games getting played in the rugby fields outside the Lansdowne Rugby Club. It was all very posh around there. But I've never seen the Republic of Ireland at home. So I need to see the two islands at home to complete the set. But I saw Wales and they were playing Poland and they get beat. But the 2 times I saw them at Hampden, I saw them again at Hampden, where they beat us, Gordon Strachan's Scotland at Hampden. It was 2013. I think that's the last time we lost a World Cup qualifier at home. We get quite a record in World Cup qualifiers. Still, Scotland, there is things to be proud of. And a certain fella scored a penalty for Wales that night, who would then miss a penalty in Seville in a European club final that also depressed me. And the next day, I had to go and see Rangers against Stirling Albion because we were in the 3rd division and it was a 12 o'clock kick-off. The top flight games had all been postponed because Scotland were playing the Friday. I was in the snow, 8 o'clock on the Friday night, that game kicked off in the snow at Hampden. And the next day, at half-empty Ibrox, live on Setanta or whatever, I watched Rangers draw 0-0 with Stirling Albion as the wind whistled round the gap between the Copeland Road and the main stand. It's hard times. I've been there for the hard times following Scotland. I don't get to the treats. We can't score goals. Scotland can't score goals. But if you are going to score a goal, last night we scored 4 goals and it's 4 different players, 2 left foot, 2 right foot. It's if you're going to score 4 goals and just 4 different players scoring them, make them the most amazing goals you've ever seen in your life. And I'm going to include Lauren Shankland's in that, an instinctive bit of poaching as well, in that standing on the line there, a great corner from Lewis Ferguson, the guy who captained Bologna to the Coppa Italia. But I've never seen anything like that. That first goal, I have never seen anything so acrobatic. So I have. It was a Champions League final. It was Gareth Bale, virtually a dead ringer. Another game that Andy Robertson was involved in. Gareth Bale in Kiev in the 2018 Champions League final. He scored 2 goals that night. I was at Hampden the night Zinedine Zidane scored that goal. But just move over. And the pantheon of all-time Scotland goals, the Archie Gemmill, Mendoza, that's got to go a wee bit to the sides. And James McFadden against France, that's got to go. There'll be other great Scotland. I was there the night we beat Spain 3-1, and Kenny Dalglish scored the last of his 30 goals for Scotland. What a privilege, what an honour it was to be there that night as a kid. I was up the Rangers end that night, so he scores it up the other end. Lay off from Davy Cooper, and just a classic Dalglish goal, beating a couple of guys and then curling it into the top corner past Louis Arcanada, a phenomenal goalkeeper. Just glorious stuff from Scotland. They scored some magical goals. Ken Dalglish has scored most of them, I would think, but that last night, it's also, in terms of goals scored at Hampden, the pantheon of great goals. Bert Conterman, Zinedine Zidane, they've also got to make a bit of space there to let that goal from Scott McTominay, when you open the scoring with a goal like that in like the 3rd minute of the game, it's going to be special. It's just going to be special. Everything everything rested. As much as Scotland scored another 3 goals after that, that was the winner. That was the goal that made the difference. That was the goal that created a momentum that augmented the feeling of this is special, and just carried it right through all the tough moments of that game, because we aren't very good, Scotland, but we've got a mentality, and Steve Clarke is, it's a club that he's got there. It was a phenomenal thing. The abuse Steve Clarke has taken from us, yes, the abuse he's taken from Scotland fans, incredibly. When he's worked and fashioned and crafted, sculpted and willed this into being, it's a phenomenal achievement, a lifetime's achievement. It's a defining image of yourself as a legend, because he is, and he's from Salkits. He's from Salkits as well, so the things he's had to overcome, it's quite amazing. My mum knows his mum. That's the one thing I say. I'm from Madras, my mum's from Salkits. Never been prouder of that. Some say we invented football. Scotland's certainly the first foreign nation when it comes to recognised football internationals, but we hosted the first international, St Andrew's Day, 1872. What's Scotland got to do with Rangers? I'm a Rangers fan. I don't want anything to do with Scotland. 1872, Glasgow. I don't know what it's got to do with Rangers if it was played at the same ground where we played our first Scottish Cup final 5 years later. I don't know. It's got nothing to do with Rangers. Some say there's a bit of archaeological evidence has been discovered recently to support the claim that Scotland actually invented football as we currently know it. But we just seem to want to moan or gloat about it, or we just want to consume football. We have to be serious. We've got no serious desire to, as I say, to actually to be good at it. Too wee, is it? I mean, actually, too small a nation. As I say before, Uruguay, what they've done in world football was a thing to behold. Denmark, who were playing last night, they've got 1 million more people than Scotland, barely. Denmark, 6 million, not even their population. They've won the Euros. They won the Euros. In fact, they've been in the semi-finals of the Euros and 3 times, and I'm talking like 60s, 80s, and at Euro 2020 they got to the semi-final, didn't they, against England at Wembley. And the World Cups are making the latter stages of World Cup, so I think we've never been past the first stage of any major tournament. Too small. New Zealand. Look at New Zealand. Look at Croatia. Croatia's like 3 million something population, and they're semi-finals of 2 World Cups, final of another one. 3rd place, 2nd place, 3rd place twice at the World Cup, I think, Croatia, and I finished 3rd at the last one, and 3rd at France '98, and of course we're runners up in Russia in 2018. Just tremendous. It's the passion. It's the size of the. Why is New Zealand so good at the rugby union? New Zealand's got a population of 3 million. They're all depressed as well over there. They're on the Prozac and stuff. And it's not like it's got so Scottish names, Dunedin and stuff like that. In New Zealand, they've got the worst of both worlds. It's isolated. It's rainy. It's sunny and that as well. Lots of mountains and stuff like that. Lonely. But they make it work. They make the rugby work. Why can't we do the same with the football, the game which we are equally obsessed with? Why aren't China the best football team? And if it's a little bit population size, why aren't China? They've qualified for 1 World Cup. China didn't get past the first round. Is it too wee in terms of physical size of us as human species? Stunted growth, Scottish thing, because of the heroin, because of the alcohol, because of the fatty diet, the shortbread, the number 1 Class A drug in Scotland, the shortbread. Is that what makes us social? I remember going to see in the 90s, was it the opening of one of the latest redevelopments of Hampden, the opening of, maybe in the Celtic end, was it being roofed and seated, and it was the Jockstein stand, I think they were calling it at that point. Netherlands played the Dutch. Like, these guys are different scale from us, and they've got more intricate skills. And they're like, it's like cartoon big compared to the Scottish players. And you see this all the time. But then you get Xavi, you get Iniesta, you get Lionel Messi. They're winning like 2 World Cups between them, 2 Copa Americas, 2 European Championships, or the Champions Leagues. You want these guys tiny. It's nothing to do with the physical size. It's just about exploiting what you have. And that was the Scottish thing, wasn't it? Tanner ball players, all that kind of nonsense. And Scott McKenna, it's just an absolute beastie, a guy. Scott McKenna. There's no excuse for us no flipping winning World Cups and Euros, far less never getting past the first round, far less no qualifying for FIFA's kind of cash-in party for almost 30 years now. McTominay scores that goal. It's that Hugh McIlvanney anecdote of George Best scoring at Old Trafford. It's He's played for Manchester United, scored for Man United at Old Trafford, has Scott McTominay as well, amongst all the great things he's done. But it's that thing of the journalist in the press section going, what did you get, what time that goal? Never mind the time, son. Just get the date. 18th of November, 2025. A work of art. Hang it. In MoMA, Craig Gordon makes a save down to about 7 minutes. I think the guy might have been offside, but he's clean through, and Craig Gordon again is doing proving why it's about, it's not about the age, it's just about your class, an absolute class goalkeeper. Down he goes and saves it. Then Ben Gannon-Doak, who put that ball, he plays the ball behind McTominay, invites him to make that over. Ben Gannon-Doak, who I saw ripping Rangers to pieces when Liverpool were down to 10 men against us in the UEFA Youth Champions League, the under 18, whatever it is, the Kids Champions League, that they play the games at a smaller stadium before the main Champions League. Liverpool that night beat Rangers 7-1. That day, I think we lost 4-3 to Liverpool, who were a man down in Ben Gannon-Doak of Dalry. It's just my auntie stays in Dalry. So local. He was tearing us to pieces, and there he was last night, putting that ball in for Scott McTominay to score the goal. That just... Rasmus Højlund was kind of inverted Scott McTominay face. He's got a full head of hair. Rasmus Højlund, his hair, it looks kind of lank. It's almost kind of green looking, his hair. It's really weird. It looks insubstantial. It's not enough for the size of his head, but he's in no way bald. It's really, really weird. His kind of cheekbones seem to splay out the way. Rather than going to get up and what have you, but he's got it in the back of the net. I don't know, 12 minutes, 20 minutes, but he's pushed Aaron Hickey. Lucky to get away with it. I thought, but we've earned the word luck. Denmark just press us. They just lay siege. Andy Robertson, he almost heads it into like a backwards header to the Uwe Seeler against England in the 1970 World Cup quarter-final. He just goes towards the back post, just goes past the far post. It was an absolute class own goal, but he's generally brilliant, Andy Robertson. Scotland are reduced to Andy Robertson. It just seems to be constantly heading it, not even out his own box, but kind of onto the feet of John McGinn, who'll carry it a few yards outside our box and try to win a foul. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. We can't. The Danish, a side like this, you need belief. You need a goal like the one Scott McTominay has already scored to give you more hope and conviction that this must be a special night. You can imagine us holding out against anything after that goal. Goals like that don't get scored by losing teams. Ben Gannon-Doak has to go off injured so early in the game. In the first half, Kenny McLean comes on for him. The second half, Craig Gordon's doing again straight away. He's a save at his near post from Højlund. Højlund is up for it. The two of them are up for it. It's Højlund against Craig Gordon. The penalty, Andy Robertson. It takes forever the VAR to decide. He's Andy Robertson standing on the line again. I'm sure I don't know the rules. I don't know the rules. I need to study the rules of football. The protocols. There should be programs. The referees get to explain themselves. Andy Robertson is definitely standing on the line. The guy's fouling, doesn't get into the box, doesn't get onto the line. Andy Robertson doesn't let him go with it, but Højlund's too cocky. He thinks it's in the bag. Rasmus Højlund. It is in the bag. It's in the onion bag. I'm saying he's going to go bottom right. I'm saying to my wife, he's going to go bottom right with this one. Big football expert. He goes top left. Christensen. That's one each. We're going out. A draw suits Denmark. No use to us. Christensen then gets sent off after he loses an hour-long battle with John McGinn's hips. More lucky than good. A lot of people say, I heard, Stephen Thompson and James McFadden on co-coms on BBC Scotland. I'm watching it live on BBC Scotland, and they've played the game at the highest level. They've played for Scotland. They've both scored for Scotland. James McFadden especially. They know what they're doing. They're forward-going players, and they're saying John McGinn's kind of won that second yellow card. It's harsh for a second yellow card. I thought he fouled him. I thought he fouled him, but that's what it is. John McGinn is just all night. He's not thinking about scoring a goal. He has a chance later on in the game, but it's just inches, battling, knowing that all you've got to do is win some time. You've got to hit the deck. You've got to have a wee bit of diving, a wee bit of cheating. You've got to do whatever you've got to do. It's no, are we more lucky than good? No, I think we're more experienced than bad. Steve Clarke's built a mindset, an attitude, and a team. It's an attitude that acknowledges how bad we are. It's kind of masters of minimalism in front of a crowd of amnesiacs. Like Kieran Tierney get almost booed. The groans, he passes the ball back like minutes, about 2 minutes before he scores. But the goal that put us in the lead, a lead that would never be given up deep into injury time. He gets booed. what are you doing passing it back? Jinky might fucking know better what he's doing. Then you know better. This what I mean about no getting there. I don't feel I deserve to be there. I'm not as committed to I don't like the whole Tartan Army thing. But at the same time, I don't know. Some of the folk out there don't seem to. So we bring on Shea Adams and Lawrence Shankland as soon as Denmark get the player sent off. And that lets Denmark continue to dominate the midfield because they're up front, isolated Adams and Lawrence Shankland. And it's almost like a quarter of an hour. It's a good 12, 13 minutes of Denmark just continuing to absolutely dominate the game. And you're thinking, should we have brought on the two strikers? But that's the thing. That is the thing with Scotland. It's just getting better and it's getting better. No Scotland, no party. I hate that song. I can't stand it. It's nonsense too that people seem to be having a pretty good party at World Cups when I watched them on the television. I was at the World Cup in 2006 in Germany. I was at the opening game. That was one of the biggest parties I've ever been at in my entire life. Scotland, I was the only Scotsman present, but but no Scotland being at a tournament is an embarrassment. That's an absolute embarrassment, and that is now at an end. And these goals, the first goal, the last two goals in this game will inspire kids for generations. That's what we've got to do. Just get the kids fucking believing again and play. No watching. McTominay and these guys play in Italy and they play down south, but just Scotland players. This stuff is real. This stuff is achievable. We can do that. We need to get a proper crop of young players coming through. We need to change something fundamentally at the very base of how we start producing footballers in this country. So there's a guy. My barber, I do still go to the barbers. I know there's not a lot there, but I've told you before, it gets really mad. You know, when you're this kind of you're half bald at the back, completely bald at the front, kind of half bald at the back. It's nearly completely gone, but the bit that's left goes wild, sticking. So I just go to the local barbers, and he's an Algerian fella, absolutely brilliant guy. But he's away back to Algeria, just a wee quick holiday to see his folks. So there's another fella in there looking after the place for him, and I didn't want to say, I didn't want to ask him where he's struck, because he was just talking about helping out with local kids teams and that kind of thing. And at the Fitbin, he's talking about the problems with Scottish Fitbin. He's telling me he hoped Scotland would win, and it's like it's us. He was giving it. I didn't want to offend him by asking him what your accent, where you originally from, or what. And I'm just hoping now he's Moroccan, you know, because it's all the North African fellas that work in there from time to time, and I'm hoping he's actually Moroccan, because the last team we played at a World Cup, Scotland playing at a World Cup, how good would it have been? I had that conversation with him yesterday afternoon about the state of Scottish football, what we got to do to bring through the kids, and Scotland in this USA men's national team 1990 away kit they were wearing last night are off to America. Lawrence Shankland, he gets it in the line. It's about 12 minutes after the sending off that we finally started to have a bit of pressure, started edging slowly towards our second shot on goal of the entire game, and Lawrence Shankland gets it on. It's yards out, fourth down in inches. I thought it gone straight in. Lewis Ferguson had put it right onto his leg, and Lawrence Shankland it was probably going to go in anyway, but he glances it in like a good striker. A good striker should. Brilliant corner from Lewis Ferguson. Kasper Schmeichel finds out that VAR doesn't really help him at Hampden when he's only wearing the green of Denmark, the Denmark goalie kit. And even when Dorgu equalised 4 minutes later, I thought Scotland were destined to do this in the most exciting, kind of nerve-shredding way possible, and that's a change. We usually lose it in the most nerve-shredding, embarrassing way possible, total frustration. They were saying last night, typical Scotland. There was nothing typical about that. We don't do things like this, but it felt like that. It felt like a night that Scotland were always going to win, and the only question was how dramatic could it be, and it got more dramatic than we could possibly have imagined, and it's thoroughly earned. I was at the game, fucking Matt Ritchie. That's why sometimes I balk. I don't go straight away in there onto the SFA website and get myself a ticket straight away. The game against Poland, Euro 2016, we drew 2-2 with Poland in the qualifiers for Euro 2016, under Gordon Strachan, who took it as far as he could, Gordon Strachan. That's the thing about putting the two players on last night. We played England in the World Cup, the 2018 World Cup qualifying campaign, and Lee Griffiths scores the 2 goals, the 2 free kicks. Phenomenal. I was at that one. He only scored the 2 free kicks because he brought on Chris Martin to play up front as well as Lee Griffiths. Scotland couldn't risk having 2 strikers, and it was only because we're losing 1-0. If we lose this game, we're out, basically. We need to get something off England. We really need to beat England if we're going to do anything. So Gordon Strachan, he risks it. Chris Martin comes on, wins 2 free kicks. Griffiths scores the 2 of them. This is like maximising your luck. And Gordon Strachan was great at that. And then we're going through on goal. Stuart Armstrong, he's got a bit like Denmark were last night. The entire England defence is at sea, and he's got, I think it was Chris Martin had to his left hand side. He had somebody to his left, somebody to his right, and he picked the wrong option, and England cut it out. It was like 3-1. We were going to score a third goal and just win the game, and England have just got enough time to go up the park, and Harry Kane scores, and it's 2 each, and that's it. Just the biggest deflation of all time. And I was at the game before that. Another 2 each at Hampden. We'd drawn 2 each with Poland and Warsaw in the Euro 2016 qualifying campaign. Phenomenal. Beat Ireland at Celtic Park. I was at that one. A great goal we scored that night against Martin O'Neill's Republic of Ireland at Celtic Park. I'm at that. We've got Poland, and we're getting beat 1-0. Lewandowski scores, of course. Matt Ritchie scores an absolute screamer. Then Stephen Fletcher scores one that's even better. And Scotland are winning 2-1, and there's only minutes to go. And I remember this fucking clown behind me, sitting with his kids and all that. It's the middle class thing. It's the Scotland support changed vastly over the years. We became a kind of pastiche of ourselves, mimicking ourselves. You don't want to be hooligans, you don't want to be causing trouble and all that. I'm not talking about back to the days of Scotland fans laying waste to London and what have you when we get down to play England. But it's, folk pissing down the back of each other's legs and that kind of stuff. It wasn't great. But I feel it's just tourists, and you get a combination of when we stopped qualifying for. In fact, it was before that when we were going to tournaments, we couldn't get out the first round. We couldn't get past the first round. The Scotland sports stuff is morphing into this thing of, we're characters. It's a big hen do, a big stag do. Look at us, we're cuddly, we're cosy. I feel it was a really kind of, it was a deeply, deeply bitter phenomenon, because a lot of it was posited on the fact that England fans were getting a reputation for hooliganism, and it was just that thing of being the opposite of the English. And I've seen a kind of entitlement growing, like the wearing of the kilt as well. It used to be you get one guy, at Scotland games, we wearing one guy out of every 20,000 wearing a wee kilt, usually with trainers, in a Scotland top, and it would be a laugh. It was for a laugh, like sand shoes, something we'd be wearing. It'd be a bit of a laugh. Now it's become this kind of almost a uniform. It's dying down again, I think. I've got a big problem with the kilt. The history of the kilt. It's a Walter Scott kind of instrument of patronising, subjugating the Scottish people, working class people, and it's that whole thing of it's no Scotland getting portrayed as everybody in Scotland's working class. There's nobody posh in Scotland. Fucking is. If you live here, there certainly is, and there's so many people who are obviously rugby and golf types going along to Scotland football games over the years as I've got there, who've got the money to be able to do it, and they're saying this is our weekend to be a bit cheeky and be a bit laddish, like we're not allowed to be run about the house and what have you, and the ladies wearing their mini kilts and their boots and things like that, and it's about being seen to be at the football rather than actually being there to support the team, to want the team to win. And I know that's what the fit was all about. You go to a party, it's a social occasion for a lot of people, but Christ, to get there, to get to the point where it's do a dear rather than, oh my God, why are we not qualifying for anything? But I just feel as if, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Sorry, there's a bitterness, absolutely don't. There's no Scotland, no party. It does my absolute nutting. What was I talking about? Sorry, I'm basically just really, really angry because I wasn't there. There was a guy sitting next to me at the Poland game. It was just a lot, and he just kept shouting these things that were obviously things he would shout at the rugby in a very rugby tone, very Newton Mearns, very Mulguy and Bearsden, more like. Know that everybody in Mulguy and Bearsden is a horrible person, but I live in a really nice area myself, so I can't really talk. But Matt Ritchie, it's Poland are they kind of get through us, and he just shouts, "Just take his legs away, Matt Ritchie. Stick one on him, Matt Ritchie." It's like, who are you impersonating? Will you stick one on him? Have you watched football ever before? And Matt Ritchie did, and it was a free kick to Poland. And we're just getting the news through in our phones that the Republic of Ireland are beating Germany. Fucking Germany. They're beating the world champions, the Republic of Ireland. As a result, we obviously need to go the other way. And because we drew at the Aviva Stadium, the Republic of Ireland, and we'd beaten them at home, and then the ball goes into the box, and it goes back off the post, and it goes back off the other post, and there's a whole lot of bodies slipping in there, and the goalkeeper's not getting to it, and Lewandowski's stud gets there and pushes it over the line from the free kick, and I just remember turning around to the guy and just going, "Aye, fucking well done, Matt Ritchie, well done, great decision." And I thought, just leave, just get away from here. The feeling at the end of Scotland find the way to win just enough to make not progressing, not taking it to the next level, utterly painful. And what we did last night was the opposite of that. It wasn't typical Scotland. It was just adding enough drama to make it even more beautiful occasion. 1 year ago, talking about Poland, it's like this is what Steve Clarke has done. The European Championships, getting to the two of them, using Alex McLeish's great performance in the Nations League. I saw another hat-trick. That was James Forrest scoring a hat-trick against Israel. That helped us win that Nations League group that then gave us the second chance. Steve Clarke joins in June 2019. That qualifying campaign is already kind of shot for the Euros, but he gets the playoff place because of our Nations League performance under Alex McLeish. But the Nations League, the last time we played the last Nations League campaign, it's the first time Scotland have ever been relegated, and it took us to a playoff to get relegated from the Nations League. It's the first time we haven't either maintained or gone up a division, or gone up a league in the Nations League. And we're in Group A, so we've got Poland, Croatia, and Portugal. And that's impossible. They're not going to do anything with that. They're not going to win that. But if you did win that group, you go through to the semi-finals. You get a chance to win an actual trophy. You know, the best trophy you can win outside the Euros and the World Cup. But we lose the first three games. I'm at the first game against Poland at Hampden. We're 2-0 down, but we come back to 2 each. You know, you're playing against Lewandowski, Modric, and Cristiano Ronaldo, basically, in that group. That's the kind of level we're up against. And we're 2-0 down to Poland, but we come back to 2 each. You know, Billy Gilmer from Ardrossan, from my hometown, you know, he scores a goal for Scotland at Hampden. It's a beautiful thing. But then Poland come back and they score a third goal, and that's right, okay. And then we lose narrowly to the Portuguese. Ronaldo scores against us in Lisbon. We only get beat 2-1. And what was it? Croatia beat us. I think we scored over there as well. We get beat 2-1, I think, in Zagreb against Croatia. So that's we've lost the first 3 games, only by a goal each. But then the fourth game, we draw 0-0 with Portugal. I know everybody's slagging Ronaldo. It was great. It was a good night. We draw 0-0 with Portugal. Was at that one. That was good. And then we get Croatia, and it's just that way. It's getting. You can see the whole game. We're getting better and better and better against Croatia. Again, Friday night, wasn't it? And then John McGinn scores right at the last minute. I think Ben Gannon-Doak teed that one up as well. He scores right 5 minutes from the end, and we win that game. And then we go to Poland, needing to beat Poland to avoid finishing bottom of the group. And it was that night, which I think was exactly a year ago. It was exactly a year before the game. Also sitting in the sofa, watching us in Warsaw. It's 1 each, but it shouldn't be. And I don't often say I'm very fatalistic when it comes to the football and that, but you can also tell. You could just be watching their football. This is on. This Scotland team feels us. They've got this. It's not just a case of we deserve to win this game. It's not about deserve almost. It's like we're going to. You can see a team that's going to win a game, despite what happens. And it's not just there's going to be a happy ending here. There's going to be it's a proper ending. It's a properly happy ending because there's a material gain to be made from it. And we're talking about Scott McTominay's goal last night. John Souttar's ball to the back post for Andy Robertson to score that winner in Warsaw in the Nations League, the last group game in the Nations League, the very last kick of the ball, puts us into playoff, the relegation playoff, gives us a chance. We then go to Piraeus and we beat the Greeks in the first leg and we get beat 3-0. We do get relegated. We lose the relegation playoff, but we took it all the way. But that night in Poland, Scotland are playing so well here. They're going to do something. They've got to sign about them. It's not often you say that about Scotland, and the ball went to the back. But as just the pass of the century, I think it's probably the best ball ever played by a Scotland player, by Big John Souttar, right up to the back post for Andy Robertson, his captain, to go in there and nod home the winner right at the death at that game. It was the same last night. They've got just 5 months ago, we played Iceland in a friendly at Hampden. I was at that one. That was the kind of. it's difficult. I've been to 96 Scotland games. I think I was going to pack it in after 100, but I never will, obviously. But I remember looking at the website just to get a ticket, and it was like so much the stadium was blocked off, and I thought, oh God, it must be a sellout. It must be an absolute. So I'm struggling to get a ticket here, but it was they did half the stadium. They just guessed the crowd was going to be half full at best. And these are the games I go to, all the Nations League games. You know, the place is half full against Malta, against Albania and stuff like qualifiers against, games against Albania and stuff. The place is half full, but you're there. You know, and you don't get a ticket for a game like last night. My own fault, really. My own fault, but you just. You go to, it's a lack of imagination. Folk don't believe that it'll ever turn. So they want to go out telling everybody, that's crap, Scotland are crap, I'm embarrassed to support Scotland. And suddenly they're back there and they're telling you, oh, I was right into it all the time. No, you weren't. But we scored that goal against Poland a year ago, and then we go back to, we're losing 3-1 at home. The first time we've ever lost to Iceland, the first time we've ever failed to beat Iceland. I think it was the 7th time of trying. And what happened to Kieran Slicker that night is something I hated being there to see it. And I watched Kieran Slicker. He's at Barnet now on loan from Ipswich, but he's still a young man. He's only 23 years old. But I hope Kieran Slicker just does a great career and comes back to play for Scotland, the Scotland men's team, and keeps a clean sheet against MD, because it just shows the paucity. Craig Gordon injured and Gunn gets injured in the warm-up, and we just don't have the bodies. We just don't have the talent. We don't have the number of players we should have for a nation that is so football obsessed. And Iceland do. And they've got, about 25 people playing football in their country. That's how bad it was just 5 months ago. But this is what Steve Clarke does. He has terrible runs in friendlies. Is a qualifying campaign that's a write-off when he arrives, so let's write it off. It's knowing, deal small and feed all. Knowing when to time it, knowing when to maximise it, knowing when you've got to do it, when you've got a chance of doing it. And we went to Euro 2024, we played those friendlies at England at Hampden, away to the Dutch, away to the French. What was it, 4-8, like 11-2, I think, an aggregate across the 3 games, we get beat. Just watching these games, we're just not at the races. We're just not in the same level as these nations. And it's nothing to do with population. It's your dedication to actually making something happen. And Steve Clarke has that dedication towards making something happen. We didn't let up. Even when Dorgu equalised 4 minutes later to make it 2 each last night, I thought Scotland were destined to do this in the most exciting, nerve-shredding way possible. We didn't let up from that little spell of pressure we just created before our second goal. And Tierney's goal was phenomenal. Kieran Tierney's goal was an absolute belter. Another guy who's a lot of injury in his career. A curler. It's going to hit perfectly from distance in the right-hand side of the box with his left foot. Danish player fails to kind of clear it. Scotland are peppering their goal, and the Danish player just kind of half clears it, and it just the minute he hits it, that's going in. That is going in. And it's, 3 minutes into injury time. The referee's given 5 minutes injury time that became 6 minutes when it went up on the clock on the telly. But this was a night. This was a kind of moment that was demanding something more ceremonial to top it off. Coup de grâce. I've actually misunderstood the term coup de grâce, or it's grown arms and legs. It's got different connotations. It's kind of euphemism treadmill. It's worked away for years. Coup de grâce. I don't know if it's just me that thinks that, but coup de grâce, it means a mercy kill, and it comes for the bullfight, and when the bull's had enough, you get the sword and they'll one stab and away it goes. It's supposed to be a mercy kill, something quick, brutal, decisive, just puts a wounded animal out of its pain, and that's what Kieran Tierney did last night. That goal was so brutally fast. It was a beautiful cultured shot, and the way in slow motion replay, the way it arcs round on the level to go in to the far side of the net, the inside of the net, but it almost kisses the jersey of 2 outfield Danish players. It kind of glances past it, and they're scared. They try to get out of the way of it because they don't want to divert it past their goalie. You should have tried. And it goes absolutely, but it was wham, bam, almost kind of out of nowhere. Not in terms of pressure, not in terms of the way the game was turning into a goal fest, but it's just wham, that's the back of the net. That is it. Game done. Injury time winner against 10 men. Let's call it quits. That's the mercy kill. But I've come to think of a coup de grâce. I think I've got it confused with icing on the cake. an icing on the cake moment. And that's what this game demanded. That's what it needed. It was, and the icing on the cake's completely opposite from a mercy kill. Making something sweet even sweeter than it already is. But for me, somebody my weight and that kind of thing, I'm particularly thinking about these iced mince pies you get at Christmas. Icing on the cake, it will kill. We'll put this beast out of his misery at some point, but very, very slowly and very enjoyably. Kieran Tierney's goal, it just kind of. It wasn't the icing in the cake moment that we actually required. The last 27 years demanded, as I say, a long, kind of slow skewering of all the pain that we've felt since France 1998. Long, kind of unwinning periods for any team. They don't just end, matter of factly, they end with kind of Hollywood skills and matador skills and Hollywood kind of climaxes. We didn't want a blistering shot through a packed box of players just in the net before we'd known it even left Kieran Tierney's feet. To be the conclusion, we didn't want that to be the conclusion. We needed something we could see coming all the way. The win was all but guaranteed at this point in time, so it was virtually risk-free when Kenny McLean got the ball. Marciniak, the Polish referee, he refereed the World Cup final, which is the 2022 World Cup final, which is arguably the greatest game of football ever played. Certainly the most amazing game of football I've ever watched. And I think he's thought to himself, I've played in the greatest game ever played at the climax of the World Cup. I've refereed the greatest game ever played at the climax. I want to referee the greatest qualifier ever played in the World Cup. And he knows how to squeeze every last bit of drama out of a situation. The penalty probably wasn't a penalty. Maybe the sending off wasn't a sending off. I don't know, but the injury time was where it all kind of. He initially signals 5 minutes injury time. They're telling us in the telly he's going to give 5 minutes injury time. You're thinking it was 5 minutes alone to decide if Andy Robertson had fouled the guy for the penalty or the substitutions. You've had a sending off. It should be 6-7 minutes because we need another goal at this point when he's going to. And then it goes up on the television as 6 minutes. And then we're like, well, that's it. And then I think it was Che Adams trying to take the ball forward when he should maybe have had a shot or put in Lauren Shankland, who was over the far side. There's only one guy between them. But Che Adams tries to go up to the corner flag and he tries to waste time, tries to win a corner. But at that point, it's heading for 7 minutes. It's right. So it's 6 minutes injury time he's given. But he's added on an extra minute for the celebrations for the goal or whatever, on a substitution during injury time. So it's going to be 7 minutes. But he keeps playing. He still doesn't blow the final whistle, and James McFadden's going, no, I think he's just indicated to one that there's another minute to go, and that was John McGinn who was talking about it after the game, that he just kept changing how much injury time there was going to be. I think he just knew it wasn't appropriate. He knew the goal that had won the game, it wasn't appropriate. Scotland needed something else. They deserved something else. Kenny McLean gave us something to wallow in, to have a bloody bath in. It was luxurious, and we luxuriated from the moment the ball broke to him. He won the ball. The ball kind of came his way, and he got to it first. There's only one defender behind him, and Schmeichel had been up in the Scotland half to play a ball into the box just before that, so we knew he was hanging about outside his box. But you're watching the television, you can't see that. You can't see. They only show you one half at a time when they're showing you the game on the telly live. But the minute it broke to him, and Stephen Thompson starts telling him in co-coms on the BBC, he's saying, shoot. And I thought, is he joking? Is this an inappropriate time to have a joke? And then you realise watching it that it was actually on, and then Kenny McLean hits it, and you're watching all the way up and down that arc of that ball. That was Patrick Schick exercise, the Patrick Schick goal against us in Euro 2020. Same end, same goal, the same stadium, the same nets. I'd probably changed the actual nets, but I was in that north stand. I'm watching it last night from the cameras that are in the main stand, obviously at Hampden, and they look over to us. The north stand is your background. But the only time I have ever seen Scotland in a major finals, the only time I've ever watched a Scotland game, attended a Scotland game in a major finals, was Euro 2020, which didn't get played to 2021 because of COVID. And then because of COVID, I had tickets for the two Scotland games at Hampden. And that took 4 games, all 4 games that have been played at Hampden. I get tickets for all of them because I did really go for it. I really planned it ahead, really making sure I was going to And then COVID comes in, and Nicola Sturgeon comes in, and she's got like 10,000 folk in the stadium, which is fine. You try to save folks' lives. That's the way to do it. But we had to be socially distanced in the stadium. But that was only go to the one game. She said half the amount of tickets everybody got. So I only got tickets for 2 games. The other one was the last 16 game. Turns out it was Sweden against Ukraine. But I was at the game against the Czech Republic. It's the only time I've ever seen Scotland. I've been there. An ambition that I've had my whole life, and I've done it now, to see Scotland in a major finals. And that was the game, and it was fucking miserable. And every replay of that Patrick Schick goal, the English loving it. And I want to see England winning major tournaments. If Scotland aren't winning them, I want England to win them. Because they get just the same kind of horrific, horrible treatment of the same media that's quite happy to look down its nose at Scotland, to mock Scotland. It will, it doesn't mock its own players. It absolutely berates them. It eviscerates people. David Beckham has apologised to the nation. I remember that. Because he kicked the guy in a football match. A guy who needed kicking. It was horrible. It's horrible. So I don't really. I'm not really into that kind of Scotland England divide thing. I've got much more in common with people from Manchester, Liverpool, whatever, than I have with folk in the Highlands, folk in Aberdeen, and stuff like that. But this is my football team. It's local. It's no nationalism, which is a horrible thing. It's kind of localism, if you like, or just a pride in the area, the arena that you're most involved in, and it's football for me. And Scotland is my local national team, and I find it horrific how underachieving we have been for most of my life. But it felt as if it was pre-written last night. It felt as if it was pre-written, and I was in that north stand with about, I said there's a guy behind me in the kilt with a couple other people, I think family members. I don't know how they all managed to get in, and he was just raging at the fact that we're getting beat 1-0, and he had bevy on him as well. He'd smuggled a miniature in there, getting even more bevied. But that goal, Patrick Schick's scoring for the halfway line. I was in the north stand that day, and the north stand, the half, like the Celtic end half, if you like, the east half of the north stand. So every time they fucking replayed that goal, the Puskas Award nominee goal, I see myself in that north stand, just watching that ball, going, that's not going in, is it? That's not going in. It's gone in. It has gone in, and this is that one back, revisited, reclaimed, eviscerated. It was just the same end, same goal, same stadium. Kasper Schmeichel, like David Marshall has played for Celtic even. Just a moment sent to wipe out everything, that Kenny McLean goal. Just sent to wipe out everything bad and have it all becalmed and soaked in scented oils and eased and relaxed and ameliorated and made for kind of 6 or 7 months at least, to have it all made good. He made it all feel pre-written, did Kenny McLean, with that goal, and it has been. It's been written since at least June 2019, but probably longer. I also saw James Forrest score a hat-trick for Scotland, as I say, and that was when Alex McLeish made his contribution towards this steady climb that Scotland have been making through whatever qualifying kind of system they can find to get themselves. That started to get themselves moved up. That started what we saw last night. Now I reset. I go back to what I grew up with, which is wanting to see Scotland make the second round of a tournament and being angry that that's the limit of our ability and our ambition. But sometimes that's the greatest kind of achievement, is the most vital achievement, the moment that gets you back there waiting on the cusp of your old legacy issues, just getting back to square one. And who knows more about that than a Rangers supporter. Hopefully there's an esprit de corps now about this club. These players, I mean, I think John McGinn, who's one of the senior members of the squad, he was 4 years old during the 1998 World Cup. They don't know about Scotland and World Cups. I don't remember 74, but I remember 78, 82, 86, 90, the 98 World Cup. I remember them all. And it just became Scotland never going to get out the first round. They're never going to get the first round of a tournament, which is, I mean, Wales qualified for 3 Euros. No, it's 4. 2 Euros and 2 World Cups. And then they got to the group stage of the last World Cup, in Qatar, Wales. But 1958 World Cup, they got to the quarter-final. 2016 Euros, they got to the semis. Euro 2020, was it Euro 2020? No, was it next one? Euro 2020, they got to the last 16. And Scotland have never been. We've qualified for far more, and we've never been out the first round. It's awful, but hopefully this team, they've got an esprit de corps when it comes to the World Cup, because they've never played in a World Cup before. But at the same time, they can pair that with genuine tournament experience from 2 major finals in 3 years, those 2 Euros. So hopefully we can go and take advantage of the newly expanded World Cup to at least get over the kind of technical, psychological, emotional barrier. Scotland just make our first ever second round. And if we're to get to it's a group of 4 teams. It's been expanded to 48 teams, which is obscene. It's just obscene. It's just to keep that scumbag Infantino in a job, to keep him in position. He thinks he's a world leader now, Infantino, going to Gaza and stuff. He's a horrific despot, and that's why you've got a World Cup. It's almost like he got Trump into power, so he can have like 3 in a row now for despotic. In fact, who was in power in Brazil in 2014? Was it the Bolsonaro, that fascist get as well? I don't know, but it just keeps going to horrifically despotic countries. The USA isn't such, and I don't know what's happening. Canada certainly isn't. I don't know what's happening in Mexico just now, politics-wise. But we know what's happening in the USA, and it's against the principles of the USA for most of its history, certainly the 20th and 21st century. But it's nevertheless, it's a horrible thing. But Infantino fits right in with that. But he's got all the African nations. There's an extra 3 European nations going to this World Cup, so it's made maybe qualifying a bit easy, but Scotland finished top of the group. And I was there 4 years ago. It was almost 4 years ago to the night. We beat Denmark 2-0. John Suter and Shea Adams scoring the goals to guarantee a playoff spot. And I was at the Ukraine game where we lost that. But then we get Ukraine in the Nations League and we pump them at Hampden after we get pumped by the Republic of Ireland and Dublin. But we win that Nations League and away we go into the next. They just keep grinding forward no matter what, this Scotland team. 8 of the third place sides. There's going to be 12 groups of 4 at this next World Cup next summer. 12 groups of 4. The top 2 qualify for the next round, which is a round of 32. So they have an extra 8. Basically, only 14 teams get eliminated in the first round. So Scotland can do it. Well, no, because I always talk about the fact that we qualified for Euro 92. Scotland qualified for Euro 92. That was when the Euros was only 8 teams. There was only 8 teams involved. So it was actually better that Scotland were effectively in the quarterfinals of the European Championship just by qualifying for that tournament in Sweden in 1992. The Soviet Union hadn't broken up yet. It was just heading towards it. It had become the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States, and we gubbed it 3-0 in our last game in that tournament to kind of make a point. So Scotland finished with the top 6, or certainly within the top 8, top 7 anyway, of Europe in that last Euros. So technically speaking, that's a better achievement. We'd need to get to, last 16 the World Cup to better that, really. But we've never been past a first round. We've never been past the first round of a major tournament, and that's humiliating for a country, as I say, that should be competing at the very highest level. The amount of time and money we all spend on football in this country. So if we can build on that and what we did last night to become the football nation we should be, then everyone will happily forget about Steve Clarke. The tourists will. Those of us who know what's what will not. A remarkable achievement, a monumental level of determination and calm. Real Scottish attributes. Steve Clarke, what's an attribute for any human being who can display them under such ignorant and persistent abuse. It's utterly heroic. Scotland's got the crap. Yeah, it's not National Resonator style. National Resonator. That was. Sorry, I'm getting off on one here. Son House's guitar. Son House, my favourite bluesman. He, born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Playing the blues, and starting playing the blues in the 20s now, and his guitar was a National Resonator style O, and that's what it was last night. Just The nation resonated with this style. Oh my fucking God. 96 Scotland games I have been to, and I'd thought about just doing 100 Scotland games and then packing it, and I never will, mostly because I never will pack it in because I'm not going that often. I'm only going to 2 or 3 Scotland games a year, really. 100 Scotland games, that sounds decent, but when you're 56 years old, it really isn't. It's not that big a total. And especially I did half of them to see the opposition, to score all these teams off my list. Oh, I've seen, the Canada national team. Oh, I've seen, the Faroe Islands and that kind of stuff. But I didn't really. It's an excuse that you create as you get a bit older to try to give yourself an excuse to go and justify seeing more football. And it's always your own country that you're cheering. Janino Bacuna, who played in Steven Gerrard's last game as Rangers manager, one of Steven Gerrard's last signings for Rangers. Him and Curaçao have qualified for the World Cup. They've got a population of 156,000. It's just as well that we're there. It'd be really embarrassing. I was there when we beat Spain in the European Championship qualifiers. I was there when we beat Spain in World Cup qualifiers. I was there when we beat France in World Cup and European Championship qualifiers at Hampden. I was there. We beat England in the Rouse Cup final. I've been to great moments. Watching Scotland at Hampden, at other venues, but no, I think last night was one of the best. Kelly Dalglish, Kelly Coates. She's there. It's the first Scotland game I remember watching was when we beat England at Wembley in 1977. I was running at my gran's. My dad, I don't know if my dad was there. He went to Wembley 2 or 3 times, but no, I don't think it wasn't at that one. I think he'd just be watching it in the pub probably. But my mum was at my gran's, and my auntie and uncle who took me to my first Rangers game, they were there. I think they were just married at that point, and another auntie, and I remember them all jumping about, going mad. Scotland scoring these goals, and I had no idea what this was all about. Scotland, England, it was England at Wembley. My uncle going, we haven't beaten them there for 10 years. I'm like, but why did you care? I didn't know about the Scotland England thing, but the first goal, it was Gordon McQueen and Kenny Dalglish scored their goals that day, and there's Hayley McQueen is on Sky, and Kelly Dalglish is on the BBC now on various channels. It's something special. It really is. And I was sitting today thinking, it wasn't just like that when our dad scored. I thought the greatest Scotland goal I'd ever seen was probably James McFadden's in terms of technical ability. And Archie Gemmell's obviously a fantastic goal for Scotland, technical ability, but McFadden's goal amounted to nothing really in terms of us qualifying for that tournament, and Archie Gemmell, of course, we were heading out. We would probably, even if we'd beaten the Dutch by the requisite number of goals in that game, we'd get fined and points for Willie Johnson being found with the old the cough remedy in his bag. But my favourite Scotland goal is Kenny Dalglish against Wales at Anfield in 1977. It's only a few months after my first ever memory of a Scotland game, and it's because every time they replay it, it's either Arthur Montford and STV or it's Archie McPherson and BBC, and the two of them are absolutely wetting themselves. The two of them are just lost it. They've lost the plot. And Scotland at Anfield is quite an amazing thing in itself. The Scotland fans on the cop and what have you, dodgy goal, the penalty, absolutely dodgy goal against the Welsh, and Don Masson's penalty. But it's that same thing last night as Kenny McLean. We're winning the game. Looks like we're heading to everything's going to be okay. You just need a coup de grace, icing the cake, whatever. And it's the ball getting swept to Martin Buchan. Oh, what a ball that is! And it's the pretty average ball when you see it these days. And then Martin Buchan puts that ball into Kenny Dalglish's head, and it's Kenny Dalglish, a Liverpool player, scoring into the Anfield Road end when it was still all terrace, and then the Scotland fans going mental. And there's a picture that BBC and STV with all the Vox pops and everything last night. It really built up special stuff. And Big Rahman on STV is doing a wee montage of great Scotland qualifying moments. And then he's talking to Archie McPherson in his living room or whatever, and Archie's sitting room in his home, and he's got the framed photograph of him and Arthur Montford sitting together. And I'd often wondered about that game if the two of them were hugging each other because they're obviously both in the same commentary position at Anfield, and the two of them are going absolutely nuts when that second goal goes in. Total fans with microphones, and the passion in their voice and the way that goal scored, and I say the fact it's a coup de grace, an icing on the cake goal as well. It's a good ball into the box, and it's a decent header for Ken Dalglish, but it means everything to me. It always did. I just thought that's my favourite Scotland goal ever, but not anymore. Not anymore. I think Kenny McLean. I've seen the most technically brilliant Scotland goal ever scored was last night, and at the start of that game and right at the end of it, the final whistle wasn't heard. The final whistle that we're wanting so badly, it wasn't heard. The final whistle was a goal. The final whistle was Scotland celebrating a magical goal. Was the crowd going crazy for a goal to the point where the final whistle gets subsumed into all that. It was beautiful. That's the greatest Scotland game, qualifying game anyway, I've ever seen. And like when I was 7 years old back in 1977, I watched it in the house on the sofa. I don't know if I walked to Morrison's this morning, the sun was out, and I was heading back up the road, and a special wee skip in my step, feeling pretty energetic for a man of my age and my size. And there's that, I've told you before, the wee park I walked through, and the final lap back home, and I just sat on the wee bench to take a wee bit of a breath, to stop myself having a heart attack, looking out over a kind of sun-drenched but freezing, crisply beautiful Glasgow. And then just in front of me, just a wee bit of grass, and there's a wee can sitting. You don't see a lot of rubbish. It's quite good, the rubbish collection around about this area. You don't see a lot of rubbish hanging about. But it turned out it was a can of Pepsi Max. And I thought, that's just instinctively, something instinctive, maybe because it's a dark can with a wee white label, and it was just over a wee brow of a wee kind of hillock with the grass up in it, and I didn't see it clearly, and these specs aren't the best. And I just instinctively thought, that's a kind of tartan special. Tartan special. You don't get that anywhere. Do you know?